Hello, my friends. Welcome to day 18 of NaPoWriMo 2021. 18 poems so far in 30 days. Keep going if you're playing in real time. I'm so happy to have you here today. If you've been following along, you know that I've been giving you a few different types of prompts. And today, seeing as how if you're playing in real time, it's a weekend, and not that that means anything. I'm gonna give you something. Again, I said this the last few times a little bit different, okay? And so bear with me because it might need a little more explaining. But let's get into the inspiration poem first, which is Sink Your Fingers into the Darkness of My Fur by Ellen Bass. Up until this sore minute, you could turn the key, pivot away. But mine is the only medicine now, wherever you go or follow. The past is so far away, but it flickers, then cleaves the night. The bones of the past splinter between our teeth. This is our life, love. Why did I think it would be anything less than too much of everything? I know you remember that cheap motel on the coast where we drank red wine, the sea flashing its gold scales as sun soaked our skin. You said this must be what people mean when they say I could die now. Now, we're so much closer to death than we were then. Who isn't crushed, stubbed out beneath a clumsy heel? Who hasn't stood at the open window, sleepless, for the solace of the damp air? I had to get old to carry both buckets yoked on my shoulders, sweet and bitter waters I drink from. Let me know you, ox you. I want your scent in my hair. I want your jokes. Hang your kisses on all my branches, please. Sink your fingers into the darkness of my fur. Okay, you might have noticed I had a bunch of tabs open on my browser window. That's not me being messy, I promise. I actually am going to be sharing some of those with you throughout the prompt to give you some examples of what we're going to do today. So, before we get into it, especially when I'm going to give you something that might be challenging, I want to read this mantra and remind you that every day is a different day and you're showing up here to your writing practice. And I love you for that. I commend you for that. So just allow yourself to hear these words if you would like. I am here and present with my experiences. I am grounded and open. I have unlimited access to the infinite flow of creativity always around me. Whatever happens on these pages is what's meant to happen. I'm not judging myself or my writing, I'm just writing. I have everything I need to begin already inside of me. I'm settling in and I'm ready to write. So I like the line, I have everything I need to begin already inside of me, because keep note of to begin. You have everything you need to begin. And today I'm going to invite you to do a little bit of research so we can always reach outside of ourselves once we have begun to find inspiration for our language and our poems. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. I might be I'm switching back and forth between the slides and the browser. So we're looking at this poem by Ellen Bass. Okay, so here we go. First step, different than normal. I'm going to invite you to do a little bit of research. So I'm going to explain why I'm giving this as your first step, but here's the idea is to find a poem online or whatever on your bookshelf if you have one, but in another language that you're not fluent in. So you might speak a little bit of it, recognize some words, that's cool. But try not to do one you're absolutely fluent in. And also see if you can find an English translation. That would be ideal. So you have both the poem in the original language and in English. So you could just Google, a poem in French. And that's actually how I found a poem that I was looking at today. So that's your step, is to just find a poem in another language you don't speak as a model for you as we go into our writing exercises. And the reason why I am giving you that is because as I was doing research on this poem, which means in this case, just reading the about this poem on the website, Ellen Bass shares that this poem actually came about when one of her students shared an exercise where she read a poem written in a language she didn't understand and then wrote her own faux translation sonically using an English word that sounded similar to the foreign word. And she's calling this a Rorschach test, in which you write down your own heart even as you allow yourself to be led. So, what turns out this poem is from, uh, Sink Your Fingers in the Darkness of My Fur. Ellen Bass says she actually looked at the original poem. I didn't realize there was an original poem by Olli Haikonen. Oh, so sorry. I'm not proficient in multiple languages, but I did some research and I found this original poem, and here it is. This is the original poem with a translation. So the poem is actually in Finnish. I found that out, which is actually not an Indo-European language. But let's not go down that rabbit hole because I was starting to go down a rabbit hole. But anyway, there's a translation here by Maria Litinen in 2012. Anyway, so there's the original and the translation. So that's what I'm inviting you to do, is just find a poem and its translation as your first step. Okay, because that's apparently where this poem came from. So go ahead and do that and come back for the next step. Okay, so the next step is to look at the poem now that you have one in its original language and its English translation. Look at them side by side, kind of like what I just showed you if you can. And just simply take note of any particular phrases or sounds in either language you are attracted to. Even if you don't really understand the original language, that's okay. And actually, this is going to go along with the third step. So I'm going to give you kind of both of them at the same time, which is try reading the poem in its original language aloud, or find a recording of someone online reading it aloud if you can. And then, like Ellen Bass has shared in how she wrote her poem, write down your Rorschach interpretation. So, what that means is, as you're listening to or reading the poem in its original language out loud, translate it as to what you hear. And I say translate badly because actually you do not need to worry about translating it verbatim or correctly because someone has already done that. But translate it or interpret it with what do you hear from the sound. So if you think about a Rorschach test, that's the ink blot test where you say, oh, what do you see in it? This is more like, what do you hear in it? So if you hear this poem out loud, what words do you hear that you recognize or that you can understand? So for example, I have a poem that I found. I can share the screen and show you what it is in a minute, but dis-moi, c'est de la glace à quoi? Like, I'm sorry to French speakers out there for pronouncing that badly. I took like a little bit of French in high school. That's about it. But I just translate it to what I heard. It's me, I'm a glacier. That's not what it means. I guarantee you that's not what that line actually says. But that's not the point. The point is free associate. What do you hear from this other language? There's a lot of tone and sound that can come through in languages that we don't speak. And so we're just going to play with that. And there's no wrong answer. You're not going to get in trouble for translating it poorly. Okay. That's not the point of this. The point is just to listen to the sounds and what words come to your mind when you hear those sounds. Okay. So go ahead and do that and then come back. I'll just show you the poem I was looking at, which is this one. So just to give some credit, I just pulled a line from that. And also to just give some quick credit, that's the original poet of the poem from Finland. He has a book. I was learning about the Finnish language. Okay, so anyway, there's so much to know. But we don't need to worry about knowing everything. We just want to be thinking about interacting with our language and our body of words in our heads with another poem in another language and just see what happens. So let's go back to the prompt. And the next step is to write a poem based on your notes, anything that you have written down from what we have been talking about. And hopefully you have something. So hopefully you found a poem and it has just sparked something in you as an exercise. And also, like Ellen Bass did she basically borrowed or stole the first line of this original poem and put it into her poem. And so feel free to do that with the English translation. Feel free to borrow lines from your original poem or in either language. But always give credit. If you're ever going to publish anything, always give credit. If you quote unquote steal something, just so you know. But the idea here is to notice what your mind is doing when you listen to a language you don't necessarily understand, and then whatever notes you have in response, let your imagination fill in the blanks. So if you were with me yesterday where we were talking about fragments and fragmentary poems, you can allow your poem to be a fragmentary poem. You can play with how having another language in your poem works. You can be meta about it. You can write about how you have a relationship or no relationship to other languages, whatever you really want to do. But I just wanted to give you the prompt to bring another language into your work, just to get us out of our English speaking, focus, and open us up to the richness and multitude of human languages out there. So okay, I hope that's going to be stimulating and not too confusing. But it's just a practice. You can bring some of you speak multiple languages and write in multiple languages. So this this might not be new to you, but the idea is to choose a language you are not fluent in and see what happens. So I actually have 3 books by Ellen Bass. Her latest, I think, Indigo. I also have Like a Beggar, and I have The Human Line. So she's published a lot of books. I don't have the exact number on me, but it's a lot. And she also is the chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. And I found some interesting things out about her in doing a little bit of research. Actually, what I already knew and appreciated, and one of the reasons why I feel like I connect to her work, is that she has, at least from my understanding, a really like holistic and healing as well as social justice, vein to what she does. I mean, her poems are really, beautiful, and they are all about the human experience. But she has a few other books, nonfiction books. So again, thinking about poets and their other lives, right? So her other her other professional life includes writing this book called The Courage to Heal, a guide for women survivors of child sexual abuse, as well as another book called Free Your Mind, the book for gay, lesbian, and bisexual youth. How amazing is that? In addition to being a poet, she's writing these I don't know if you would call them self-help books, but healing books for people to learn and heal from. I think that's amazing. She's also from Santa Cruz, California, which is my alma mater. And she's done some pretty cool things like doing workshops in prisons. And I'm sure more things that I have not even read about. But she just seems like a kick ass woman. And I was very thrilled to hear about how the poem came to be, because this poem that I shared with you, for some reason, I love a lot of her work, but this one, just the sink your gosh, sink your fingers into the darkness of my fur is so wild and animalistic, and I love that kind of thing. um Apparently Ellen Bass did too, when she saw that line, which was actually the other poet Ollie's line, and then wrote from it. So we can all be inspired by each other, and steal or borrow lines or ideas from each other. I'll just say it again. I'll reiterate, whenever you publish and you borrow something, just always give credit. Otherwise, it's like plagiarism. So I hope you enjoyed that. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.